West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself. That is one of the legally devastating lines in a New York Times breaking news report tonight under the headline, Trump had more than 300 classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump's life gets worse every day. And tonight, his life got much worse with the revelation in the New York Times that Donald Trump himself went through all of the boxes of documents that he was illegally possessing and concealing at his Florida home. And this is the kind of reporting that indicates that Donald Trump's legal life is going to get much, much worse as this story keeps moving forward. A team of 4 investigative reporters for the New York Times report that the government has retrieved more than 300 classified documents from Donald Trump's Florida home in 3 different retrievals from Mar-a-Lago, including the 3rd and final retrieval, which was executed by the FBI with a search warrant issued by a judge who said today that he issued that search warrant because he found, quote, probable cause that evidence of multiple federal crimes would be found at the premises. The Times reports, quote, the initial batch of documents retrieved by the National Archives from former President Donald J. Trump in January included more than 150 marked as classified, a number that ignited intense concern at the Justice Department and helped trigger the criminal investigation that led FBI agents to swoop into Mar-a-Lago this month, seeking to recover more. Multiple people briefed on the matter said. But before anyone from the federal government went to Mar-a-Lago in search of documents, the Times reports Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself in late 2021, according to multiple people briefed on his efforts before turning them over. So the Times is reporting that multiple witnesses know that Donald Trump went through the boxes of classified material himself last year. And obviously, Donald Trump decided to keep those boxes. Last week, we learned that when the lawyers for Donald Trump tried to get him to return that material, he delivered the now famous line, "It's not theirs, it's mine." The 2 lawyers who Donald Trump had made his official representatives on this matter were former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and former White House deputy counsel Patrick Philbin. This year, Donald Trump removed them as his official representatives in dealing with the National Archives. And perhaps then, there may have been no one telling Donald Trump that he had to comply with the law. After the first batch of 150 documents marked as classified were removed from Donald Trump's Florida home in January, federal prosecutors and FBI agents visited Donald Trump's home in June, when, according to the New York Times reporting tonight, aides to Mr. Trump turned over a few dozen additional sensitive documents during a visit to Mar-a-Lago by Justice Department officials in early June. The two Trump lawyers who dealt with the Justice Department investigators who went to Mar-a-Lago in June are potentially tonight in very serious legal trouble of their own, based on the breaking news reporting in the New York Times tonight, which describes false assurances that those two lawyers provided to the Justice Department in writing. The Times reports on June 3rd, Jay Bratt, the chief of the counter-espionage section of the National Security Division of the Justice Department, went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with two of Mr. Trump's lawyers, Evan Corcoran and Christina Bobb, and retrieve any remaining classified material to satisfy the subpoena. Mr. Corcoran went through the boxes himself to identify classified material beforehand, according to two people familiar with his efforts. Mr. Corcoran showed Mr. Bratt the basement storage room where he said the remaining material had been kept. Mr. Trump briefly came to see the investigators during the visit. Mr. Bratt and the agents who joined him were given a sheaf of classified material, according to two people familiar with the meeting. Mr. Corcoran then drafted a statement, which Ms. Bobb, who is said to be the custodian of the documents, signed. It asserted that, to the best of her knowledge, all classified material that was there had been returned, according to two people familiar with the statement. The statement wasn't true. It was not true. Christina Bobb signed her name to it, and Evan Corcoran wrote it. Evan Corcoran drafted a statement that was not true. And Christina Bobb signed the untrue statement in an official written communication with the Justice Department, where it is a crime to lie to the FBI. The Times goes on to explain why the investigation didn't end there. Justice Department officials had just visited Mar-a-Lago themselves. They'd been assured in writing by the Trump lawyers with that document signed by Christina Bobb that the Justice Department was now in possession of all of the classified documents that were there. But here's what happened next. Soon after that visit, investigators who were interviewing several people in Mr. Trump's circle about the documents came to believe that there were other presidential records that had not been turned over, according to the people familiar with the matter. On June 22nd, the Justice Department subpoenaed the Trump Organization for Mar-a-Lago's security footage. It revealed people moving boxes in and out, and in some cases appearing to change the containers some documents were held in. Every one of those people in those videos about moving those boxes is going to be questioned under oath by the Justice Department about exactly what they were doing with those boxes. But that video seems to have played a strong role in convincing the Justice Department and Attorney General Merrick Garland that they would need a search warrant to get more classified material from Donald Trump's home. And when the FBI completed the search that the search warrant allowed them to conduct on August 8th, the New York Times reports, officials left with 26 boxes, including 11 sets of material marked as classified, comprising scores of additional documents. One set had the highest level of classification, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. Donald Trump, the Times reports, went through the boxes himself at the end of last year, withheld that information when the first batch of documents was returned to the National Archives in January, And Donald Trump continued to withhold that information when another batch of documents was handed over to the Justice Department in June. And when the FBI showed up with a search warrant in August, Donald Trump was still holding on to 11 sets of material marked as classified, comprising scores of additional documents. One set had the highest level of classification, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information. That's what Donald Trump was holding on to when the FBI arrived at his home. The Times reports the FBI agents who conducted the search found the additional documents in the storage area in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, as well as in a container in a closet in Mr. Trump's office.
It is Tuesday, the 23rd of August of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. It always has, and it always will. Speaking of spicy, at least in the Hungarian paprika sense, 300 or more highly classified documents in Trump's purview in a normal world would cause more than just a few eyebrows to raise. Give me a break. All right, I guess that's just normal procedure for the Republican Party now and America. It's no big deal. If our foreign adversaries have our deepest secrets, well, we shouldn't have had them anyway, right? We shouldn't be keeping secrets. That's the attitude. All right. And they say that they are the adults. I do not think so. Boy. And you got to understand, it's pretty bad when we hippies have to be the adults in the room. It is that bad. All right. Told you it would happen, and it is. We all thought it was hyperbole, did we? All right. I guess it's just business as usual with the Republican Party. Selling secret docs. We should just overturn those espionage laws. Yeah, let's do that, Rand Paul. Somebody made the joke that if Trump stood in the middle of Fifth Avenue and killed somebody, Rand Paul would want to overturn homicide laws. That's about right. And then he makes a threat to Fauci. Oh, you think that you're going to have a nice little retirement in your old age? We're going to hound you. We're going to cause you to have so much pain and anguish. What is up with Rand Paul? He's a quack. I love how quacks go after real doctors. Here's a guy in public service for decades and decades and decades, and I got to tell you, Anthony Fauci is no liberal. Okay? Got to be clear on this. This is how bad it is. He's a card-carrying Republican. But no one would know that, would they? Because apparently, if you are of the scientific mind, you are automatically against whatever it is that Republicans stand for. A North Carolina Republican says that he believes that children below fifth grade should not be taught history or science in the schools. What do you teach them? I don't understand. I guess the 3 R's, writing, arithmetic, and reading, writing, arithmetic. There you go. Reading, writing, arithmetic. And those aren't even R's. I always love that, the 3 R's. And the 3 R's don't start with R, except for reading. You got one R, and they go, they're 3. Well, what did you learn at school? Apparently not enough. And since they didn't learn enough, they don't want anybody else to learn enough either. No history, no science before 5th grade. 10 years old. I guess that means even the story of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. Can't teach that. And I wouldn't anyway, because that's stupid myths. All right. I might want to teach the, his guides for young people. It was young men at the time, but you know what I mean. It can be for everybody. You know how to live a good life, virtuous, shall we say. Might want to have the kiddies go through that. Might, but you can't now. Under 10, teaching about George Washington, go to jail. They don't want you to know enough because they don't know enough. This whole gambit that Trump is playing, that it was mine, and everybody told him it wasn't, but he truly, truly believed everything that he did and was as president. Everything was his. The generals were his. The Treasury Department was his. State Department, what's left of it, was his. His to do as he wishes and pleases, and it pleased him actually to decimate the State Department. And you know why. What I want to know, and I actually ventured this query on social media, did Vlad or was it Lavrov give Trump one of those little KGB cigarette lighters, that they push, not push, but they kind of slide back and forth. Then they take pictures and put them on microfiche. Remember that microfiche? Well, I remember being a kid thinking that microfiche, that's like some heavy duty advanced technology there. And it was. Because you can't expect Trump to retain anything from 300 documents. Here was a guy who refused to take the presidential daily briefing, but he's taking highly classified secret documents to the residence. What I want to know is, was Melania in on this? Was she like carrying stuff? Because we've all felt that she's a handler. And poor Ivana, I read a few things about the timeline. She was just a couple of months away from the non-disclosure agreement that she had with Trump on their divorce, and that was up in just a few days before she died. Trump was going to stand before this grand jury where he pled the fifth 440 plus times. I don't know. Maybe the kids had something that they were peeved about. Could be. Apparently, she was kind of a hard taskmaster, just like Mrs. Trump, Donnie's ma. Apparently, she was a very hostile Scottish gal. Very hostile. Well, winning and losing. That's where we are. That's the virtue of America now. It's not doing right or wrong. It's winning or losing. If you're losing, you're doing wrong. If you're winning, everything you do is right. Apparently. Well, that's not any kind of moral structure that America should be dependent upon, because that is not how a democracy works. Yeah, majority wins. But it's a little bit different than that. We expect the electorate to be educated. We expect the electorate to be engaged. This other side takes the authoritarian route, where the least amount of engagement with the population, the better. And if we give them bread and circuses, that's great. They don't toe the line, well, they already have the gulags built, don't they? Made out of ice boxes. The size for little kids. Squeeze in, ma'am. Squeeze right into that icebox baby gulag. Okay, well, enough of that. We do have a curated show, and I wanted to start off the top because this is breaking news about Trump's 300-plus classified documents that he's got squirreled away just at Mar-a-Lago alone. I want to know what's at Trump Tower and at Bedminster. And speaking of Ivana, can't they do like a LiDAR scan to see if there's something, other than just Ivana in the casket? and I'll just bring this up one more time. I keep reading stories or purporting, reports purporting to say that Ivana was cremated. But at the same time, they also state that she had a traditional Catholic funeral. Those two do not go hand in hand. If you're a traditional Catholic going through a traditional Catholic funeral, cremation is a mortal sin, not venial, mortal. Now, it would be just like the rest of the Trumps to burn her down into dust. It would. But if she had a traditional Catholic funeral, they're not going to put an urn up there. I'm just saying. Now, they might have had a casket closed. I don't know. But I don't think that she was cremated. Possibly, knowing how the Trumps are. But if she had that traditional Catholic funeral, I'm just saying. Anyway, regardless, what's in the casket besides Ivana? I want to know why he has all of these documents. Wouldn't that be weird, though, if his drops were at Ivana's grave? Maybe he made some sort of, weird slot. You pull back a shrub. It's a pretty bare grave site, I got to tell you. But maybe he planted a shrub. You kind of pull it back a little bit, and there's a slot to put whatever documents you're passing off to Lavrov so you can get it to Vlad. Maybe. Okay. Oh, speaking of Vlad, and I'll get into the curated part of the show here in just a moment. I think the jury's still out in how Dugan's daughter was blown up. I believe that Dugan and his daughter were targets. And to me, this is not very dissimilar to what happened to the Skripals in the UK, because the first thing that Vlad said when the Skripals were poisoned, he came out and said, the Brits did it. The Brits did it. And what was his great evidence that the Brits had done it? They reported that the Skripals had been poisoned and they were KGB. As if there was a internal struggle, so to speak, for those who don't toe the line so well with Vlad. He has a very convenient way of dealing with folks. Like, 5-story falls from condos. That happens a lot. The convenient mugging in the lobby or foyer of your hotel or apartment building, that happens quite a bit. The convenient heart attacks. And I got to tell you, convenient car bombings, too. Way before the Dugan daughter got blown up, there had been quite a few so-called dissidents. Former loyal Vlad aficionados, psychophants, former. And so he made their former title permanent, apparently. So this is, to me, very reminiscent of what happened to the Skripals in the UK. And there is somewhat of an internal struggle going on, and I would think that it's also part of keeping everybody in line. If he's going to go after the titular head of the philosophical argument for what Russia is, he's not going to hesitate going after some oligarch and their money. And maybe, get rid of the family too, just to be sure. That's how Vlad works. It's a mob state. And that's how Trump wants to make the United States of America. And apparently there's quite a few, millions, scores of millions of people who want the same thing, and they've got a lot of guns. Maybe the spell will be broken, maybe. Because these many documents and all the subterfuge and all the lying, I think some people might find that unseemly. On the other hand, if you're like a DeSantis, you might just roll with it. It might get you where you want to go. Yeah, out of woke land. Well, I want to tell everybody we are from woke land. So what's on the rest of the menu here in Wokeland? Okay, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Yes, Mr. Trump went through the boxes himself. That should be enough to convict the guy, but he'll slide on this one too. We're going to have to find something else. It just isn't enough. I can feel it. On the rest of the menu, new polls show majorities of Americans want stricter gun laws, and that includes Republicans. After enduring continuous harassment, the entire election staff of a rural Texas county abruptly quit 70 days before the election. They've had enough. On the other hand, that's exactly what the maggots want: chaos. And a grand jury ordered Walmart to pay an Oregon man $4.4 million for racial profiling. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where pandemic anti-mandate protesters converged on the New Zealand Parliament. And the Germany Environment Ministry reported there is no single cause for the massive Oder River fish die-off. They don't call it the Oder for nothing. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room, of course, is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who has returned from Pittsburgh from Netroots Nation 22, and we'll look forward to interviews and other content that she put up while at Netroots Nation in Pittsburgh. And we look forward to Netroots Radio attending Netroots Nation 23 in Chicago. That's coming up. Look forward to that too. If you would look across the page from that chat room link, and thank you, Kelly, for everything that you do. If you would look across from the chat room link to the left near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll locate, hopefully, the Patreon link. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it would really help us. If you could afford to send us what you might spend on, how about an espresso-type coffee drink? If you could send those funds to us once a month, that helps us pay our bills. And we have found over 11 plus years of continuous resistance radio. And when I say continuous, I mean 24/7, 365 resistance radio. We find that when we pay our bills, we can fly under the radar and continue that resistance that is so sorely needed here in today's new Agogo Nazi takeover of everything good. We don't want them to get away with it, and we're not going to allow it. And we thank you for your generosity in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many years ago. All kidding aside, your help really does help, and we thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple. You just go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that because he made it simple. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam, no matter how complex that might be. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos 10 minutes before showtime, and you can access those show notes and links by going to my Twitter feed because it's all there, all of it. Follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, really wherever podcasts can be found. And, of course, the Deep Archive. because we can't keep everything on Spreaker, the deep archive of Netroots Radio's library over these 11 plus years can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Okay, we got the niceties out of the way. Let's get into this truly curated part of our show. And this first offering here, and I had the tab up, but of course I X'd it out, so let's bring it up one more time. And this first offering is by Sarah Burnett from the Associated Press. Most U.S. adults want to see gun laws made stricter and think gun violence is increasing nationwide. Think? And that's according to a new poll that finds broad public support for a variety of gun restrictions, including many that are supported by majorities of Republicans and gun owners. The poll by the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy and the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research shows 71% of Americans say gun laws should be stricter, including about half of Republicans, the vast majority of Democrats, and a majority of those in gun-owning households. The poll was conducted between July 28th and August 1st after a string of deadly mass shootings from a New York grocery store to a school in Texas and a July 4th parade in Illinois, and a 2020 spike in gun killings that have increased attention on the issue of gun violence. Overall, 8 in 10 Americans perceive that gun violence is increasing around the country, and about 2/3 say it is increasing in their state, though less than half believe it is increasing in their community, the polls show. The question of how to prevent gun violence has long divided politicians and many voters, making it difficult to change gun laws. I would say the NRA and a few mega billionaires who want chaos so they can do their disaster capitalism and destroy democracy in the process. I think they might have a hand in this. I think. In June, a conservative majority on the Supreme Court expanded gun rights, finding a constitutional right to carry firearms in public for self-defense in really saturated, dense urban areas like New York, who back in the Wild West days said, we can't have everybody going off half crazy, half cocked, shooting up in the air and shooting at each other. If you're in the city limits of New York City, or if you're in the state, you have to register your gun. You got to hang it up on there in the hook. You can take it when you go. But apparently to this conservative SCOTUS, that's too much because we need the chaos. Later that month, President Joe Biden signed a bipartisan gun safety bill. The package, approved in the wake of the shootings, like the one that killed 19 children and 2 teachers in Uvalde, Texas, was both a measured compromise and the most significant bill addressing gun violence to be approved in Congress in decades, an indication how intractable the issue has become. Now, the only reason it's the first time we've had this since the California 101 shooting way back when Dianne Feinstein got a machine gun bill, an assault weapon bill passed, because that was the weapon that was taken in to California 101, where the guy killed a bunch of people because, I don't know, he didn't get the stock return he was promised. Nicole Whitelaw, 29, is a Democrat and gun owner who grew up hunting and target shooting in upstate New York with her strongly Republican family. Whitelaw, who now lives along Florida's Gulf Coast, supports some gun restrictions, such as prohibiting people convicted of domestic violence from owning firearms and a federal law preventing mentally ill people from purchasing guns. She said other restrictions, such as banning the sales of AR-15 rifles, are going too far and may not solve the problem. Whitelaw pointed to the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, when many people bought up all the toilet paper they could find. I think people would just start trying to hoard guns, she said, adding that a better approach is to make smaller changes and see what impact they have. Well, I got to tell you, it doesn't matter. Every time there's a school shooting, there's a hoarding of guns. Okay? Every time someone says we would like to have a safety lock on the gun safe. Can't we just have a lock on the gun safe? It causes the gun nuts to freak out and they go and hoard the guns. They're already hoarding the guns. All right? Doesn't matter how big the proposal is. It doesn't matter how microscopic the proposal is. They are going to hoard the guns. How about they don't have any more guns to hoard? Paul J. Weber of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Part of why Terry Hamilton says he abruptly left his job running elections deep in Texas wine country is by now a familiar story in America. He became fed up with the harassment that followed the 2020 election, but this was no ordinary exit. On the brink of November's midterm elections, it was not just Hamilton who up and quit this month, but also the only other full-time election worker in rural Gillespie County. The sudden emptying of an entire local elections department came less than 70 days before voters start casting ballots. By the middle of last week, no one was left at the darkened and locked elections office in a metal building annex off the main road of Fredericksburg. Your vote counts poster hung in a window by the door. A scramble is now underway to train replacements and ground them in layers of new Texas voting laws that are among the strictest in the U.S. That includes assistance from the Texas Secretary of State, whose spokesperson could not recall a similar instance in which an elections office was racing to start over with a completely new staff. But the headaches don't stop there. The resignations have more broadly made the county of roughly 27,000 residents, which overwhelmingly backed former President Donald Trump in 2020, an extraordinary example of the fallout resulting from threats to election workers. Officials said voting experts worry that a new wave of harassment, or worse, will return in November, fueled by false claims of widespread fraud. Well, we've seen this as a work in progress right before our very eyes. Hamilton, who has clashed with poll watchers in Gillespie County in past elections, said he did not want to go through it again. That's the one thing we cannot understand. Their candidate won heavily. Where's the fraud? He declined to discuss the nature of the threats in a phone interview, referring questions to the county attorney, who did not respond to a phone message. Gillespie County Sheriff Buddy Mills said neither his department nor police in Fredericksburg had received information about threats from election officials. Now understand, Hamilton worked under Anissa Herrera, the former county elections administrator, whose resignation was first reported by the Fredericksburg Standard Radio Post. I was threatened. I've been stalked. I've been called out on social media, she told the outlet, and it's just dangerous misinformation. But the sheriff has never heard of any threats to election workers. Associated Press bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Multnomah County Grand Jury has ordered Walmart to pay $4.4 million in damages to a man who sued the store, saying he was racially profiled and harassed by a Walmart employee at a Portland, Oregon area store in 2020. According to a lawsuit, the employee spied on Dovey Magnum while shopping, ordered him to leave, and called police when he refused. According to the lawsuit and a news release from his attorneys, Magnum, who was 59 at the time, visited the Walmart in Wood Village on March 26 of 2020 to buy a light bulb for his refrigerator. After Magnum arrived, he noticed store employee Joe Williams watching him as he shopped. Williams told Magnum to leave the store, but Magnum refused, saying he'd done nothing wrong. Magnum's lawyer said Williams told Magnum he was going to call the police and tell them Magnum had threatened to smash him in the face. Williams called the non-emergency police dispatch line and told the operator he, quote, had a person refusing to leave, end quote, the lawsuit states. According to Magnum's lawyers, deputies from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office responded and refused to take action against Magnum. The lawyer said deputies made that decision based on Williams' shifting explanations for the reason he called and because of his reputation for making false reports to the police. According to Magnum's lawyers, the next day, Sheriff Sergeant Brian White and another deputy met with the director of Walmart and the assistant manager and explained that deputies had noticed a pattern of behavior in which Williams would call police to report dangerous active situations, such as customers physically assaulting him or other employees, that were not happening. The store and Walmart corporate officials kept him on the job for several more months and then fired him in July of 2020 for mishandling $35 of Walmart property. Well, they got their priorities straight now, don't they? All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, The American Express Connection, or Gig Day Afternoon. Emily the Criminal is written and directed by John Patton Ford and stars and is co-produced by Aubrey Plaza, who plays Emily, a drowning person shackled to a low-pay, no-rights food delivery gig by past DUI and assault convictions, and thousands of dollars in student loan debt. A co-worker hooks her up with a credit card fraud side hustle, and we're off and running. First off, the acting is spot on. Plaza, Theo Rossi, everyone sinks these short scenes in naturalistic dialogue. Second, the storytelling is well done. Ford gives cinematographer Jeff Bierman a handheld camera to pummel us with a series of unstable tight shots and close-ups, delivering a chokingly claustrophobic film that makes us see and feel how Emily is trapped. Harrison Atkins' abrupt edits further the unsettling and aggressive feel of this world, and Liz Toonkill's production design gives us a dirty and sweaty LA even in spaces that are moneyed and swank. The gestalt harkens to early 70s American New Wave, no surprise, since Dog Day Afternoon, The French Connection, those are some of Ford's favorite movies. Okay. Let's step back, which is something the film rarely allows you to do. It's problematic to have very rich, very beautiful people make movies, for the well-off, about characters who are poor and desperate, and I brace when the film places a foot in two moral camps. Though we see Emily pushed by a world crafted by unabashed, opportunistic exploitation, one of the few scenes of length suggests that there's something in Emily that takes to crime, an impression enhanced by how other the film makes her, a Jersey girl in LA, isolated by the close-ups, alone even in crowds. Though Plaza herself likes this criminal essence, it strikes me as lazy morality. Sure, the world is hard, but people do bad things because they're bad people. Though Emily the Criminal gives us much, its questions deserve more. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the day the U.S. Congress approved the formation of the Commission on Industrial Relations. In the early 1900s, the terrible work conditions and entrenched resistance to union organizing had led to increased labor unrest. In 1910, 2 union members in San Francisco bombed the Los Angeles Times building, killing 20 people. The public outcry led officials in Washington to decide they needed to get serious about investigating the reasons behind the mounting anger of working people. The commission included 9 members, 3 workers, 3 employers, and 3 community members. The leader was Frank P. Walsh, a labor lawyer from Missouri. Led by Walsh from 1913 to 1915, the commission embarked on a sweeping investigation of the conditions of work in the United States. They conducted 740 interviews that took them 154 days to complete. Interviewees included IWW leader Big Bill Haywood, labor hellraiser Mother Jones, and champion of working people lawyer Clarence Darrow. The commission investigated the Paterson, New Jersey silk mill strike and multiple other work actions. For 3 days, the commission grilled John D. Rockefeller on the Ludlow Massacre. The result was an 11-volume compilation of testimony. 100,000 copies of a shorter final report were published. The final report described the poor working conditions at many job sites and the brutal repression of the labor movement. It critiqued the treatment of agricultural workers. Predictably, many found fault with the commission's findings. The New York Herald called the commission's chairman Walsh a Mother Jones in trousers. Despite these critics, the comprehensive report stood as a powerful, detailed review of the conditions faced by thousands of working people every day. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high nearly the same as yesterday, around 92 to 95. Partly cloudy skies throughout the day with winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows in the upper 50s, low 60s. Winds will have shifted out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then a mainly sunny sky tomorrow with highs near 97 to 100. Winds shifting back to the northwest or out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus have not been updated, so we will update that when we get updated. Grass pollen is rated low right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good. Oh, it's 19 parts per million. That's quite good. And the daytime UV index is high at level 7. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.02 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles. And relative humidity is at 93%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 78 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 84 and partly cloudy. Rome is 90 degrees and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 86 and sunny. Kabul is 65 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 88 and fair. Tokyo is 85 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is a chilly 46 degrees and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 degrees and cloudy. And New York, New York is 80 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Nick Perry of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. About 2,000 protesters upset with the government's pandemic response converged on New Zealand's parliament, but there was no repeat of the occupation 6 months ago in which protesters camped on parliament grounds for more than 3 weeks. Many of the protesters said they had no intention of trying to stay, and police ensured a repeat was unlikely by closing streets, erecting barricades, and banning protesters from bringing structures onto Parliament grounds. The previous protest created significant disruptions in the capital and ended in chaos as retreating protesters set fire to tents and hurled rocks at police because they just don't want anyone to be healthy. This time, there was also a counter-protest with several hundred people gathering in front of Parliament as the main march entered the grounds. The two sides shouted insults, but a line of police officers kept them physically separated. The earlier protest had been more sharply focused on opposition to COVID-19 vaccine mandates. New Zealand's government initially required that health workers, teachers, police, firefighters, and soldiers get vaccinated, but it has since removed most of those mandates, with the exception of health workers and others. It has also removed requirements that people be vaccinated to visit stores and bars. But today's protests was as much about lingering discontent over the government's handling of the crisis as it was about current rules, including a requirement that people wear masks in stores.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Frank Jordans of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Several substances seem to have contributed to the massive fish die-off in the Oder River that forms much of Germany's border with Poland. Numerous theories have been floated about the cause of the environmental disaster, but so far none have been conclusive, a spokesman for Germany's Environment Ministry said. He rejected suggestions from a senior Polish official that Germany was spreading fake news about pesticides being behind the environmental disaster. The search for the causes of the fish die-off in the Oder still have not been completed, said Andreas Kübler, the ministry spokesman. So far, we have several organic and inorganic substances that could be responsible. It seems to be a cocktail of chemicals, he told reporters in Berlin. According to our information so far, none of these substances alone led to the fish die-off. It must still be assumed that this could be a multi-causal incident. Indeed. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.